Hello, and welcome to this final installment of the Globe and NGSS webinar series. Thank you to everyone who's able to join us today. Again, thank you to all of you that are here for the second or sometimes third webinar. We really appreciate that you're able to attend. We are recording this session. The objective of this webinar is to provide a description of the process that our team went through to build the alignment between Globe and NGSS. The primary audience for this webinar is most likely staff and volunteers from similar curriculum supplement programs who are planning their own connections to NGSS. If you are a Globe teacher, partner, or trainer, then you will likely find the previous two webinars more helpful. All of the webinars in this series have been recorded and are available on the Globe program website in the Teaching and Learning section. Our presenters for this webinar are the three members of the project leadership team: Marcy Seavey from the Iowa Academy of Science, David Bydlowski from Wayne Ressa, who unfortunately is not able to be with us today, and Kristen Wegner from the Globe program. This project was made possible through the support of from an NSF grant. So basic instructions for this webinar. You can listen by calling the phone number or through your internet connection. You cannot speak into the phone or internet connection, so the only way to communicate with us is through the chat box. You can send a chat to all participants or to just individual people like Marcy and I. You can also type any questions or comments into the chat box on the bottom left. Again, this webinar and all of our NGSS webinars can be found under Professional Development Resources on the globe.gov homepage. And the NGSS final product can also be found under this tab in the Learning Standards option. Our agenda for today is to briefly describe the Globe program, then provide a description of the process that we use to develop connections between the Globe program and NGSS. We'll briefly take a look at some of the resulting documents. Then we will end with the lessons learned and some time for some questions. The Globe program was founded in 1995 as a partnership between scientists, teachers, and students around the world. Today, students in 112 countries use protocols designed by scientists, collect data about their local air, weather, soil, land cover, and/or seasons, then use that data to help develop their own scientific investigations. Globe resources are freely available on the Globe program website, www.globe.gov. However, to ensure the accuracy of Globe data, a teacher must become Globe certified through participation in the Globe Teacher Workshop in order for her students to contribute data to the Globe database. Globe resources include protocols, which are a step-by-step instruction for collecting data; learning activities, which give students experience with concepts that they may need to understand and interpret their own data and build their own investigations; Elementary Globe, a series of 5 books and 15 activities that connect Globe science concepts to literacy to lower elementary grade students; additional activities and website resources. For example, the Earth System Science projects develop new Globe activities and in some cases new protocols that build upon those in Teacher's Guide, and the online Globe visualization tool allows anyone to create graphs of Globe data. For the purpose of this alignment project, the team considered the Teacher Guide and the Elementary Globe resources first, and supplementary and web resources second. In total, there were 214 Globe resources to consider.
Thank you, Kristen. So next, we're going to discuss the various phases of our project. In August of 2013, the Iowa Academy of Science Globe Partnership was awarded a National Science Foundation grant to support a Globe and Next Generation Science Standard Alignment Workshop. The proposal called for pre- and post-workshop activities. This slide illustrates the first 2 phases of our project. Our first step was to recruit members of the Globe community who are familiar with Globe and who had had at least some experience with the Next Generation Science Standards. The team selection was crucial. Since our team would only be face-to-face for 2.5 days, it was very important that the time used during the workshop was spent on reviewing GLOBE resources for alignment and not on educating members of the team about GLOBE or about the next generation science standards. The team members were sought from across the U.S. from active GLOBE partnerships, trainers, teachers, and scientists. Team members were recruited primarily via GLOBE email to GLOBE partnerships and announcements in the GLOBE electronic communications, such as Facebook, newsletters, and posts to forums. Potential team members had to demonstrate some prior knowledge of NGSS and agree to participate or watch pre-workshop webinars. Most team members were involved in their state-level NGSS review teams or other local NGSS initiatives. Applicants were sorted by role in GLOBE, NGSS experience working with various grade levels, and science background, and team members were selected so that the expertise was spread out across all grade levels and all areas of science were represented. 6 teams of 3 to 4 members were created. Once the teams were assembled, a series of 4 pre-webinars provided the whole group with a common background in NGSS and helped set the stage to think about how to align GLOBE materials to NGSS. And as Kristen said, those pre-webinars are available on the GLOBE website. The pre-webinars focus primarily on providing the whole team with a common background of NGSS. Each webinar focused on 1 or 2 of the 7 conceptual shifts of NGSS and implications that shift had towards alignment. We're not going to take the time here to describe each of the 7 shifts, primarily because we've already recorded those webinars. However, all of those webinars are available. We'll briefly describe 2 shifts which had the most influence on our work. The 3-dimensional nature of each of the NGSS standards and that standards are presented as student performance expectations had the most influence on our work. So to take a look at that, we're going to use one of the 3rd grade student performance expectations as our example. This 3rd grade Earth and Space Science standard. This is, a 3rd grade Earth and Space Science standard. The student performance expectation succinctly represents all 3 dimensions of the standard: a practice, which is blue on this slide, a cross-cutting concept, which is green, and a disciplinary core idea, which is orange. So here, the practice is analyzing and interpreting data. The cross-cutting concept is patterns can be used to make predictions, and the DCI is about the use of past weather data to make predictions about future weather, specifically seasonal weather patterns. Now let's look at the rest of the slides. This graphical organizer has 3 boxes. The first is the standard, the second is classroom instruction, also called curriculum, and the third is assessment. Standards-based education is dependent upon successful alignment between these 3 elements: the standard, classroom instruction, and assessment. Unlike previous standards, the outside elements of this diagram begin in alignment. This is because the next generation science standards are represented as student performance expectations, or descriptions of what students must be able to demonstrate mastery of at the completion of instruction. This focuses alignment down to one question: what needs to happen during classroom instruction to prepare my students to demonstrate mastery of this performance expectation? Although the standard, we believe that classroom instruction that would prepare students to demonstrate mastery of this performance expectation would engage students in multiple practices, although the standard has one practice embedded in it. So here are some examples of things that might happen in a classroom preparing students to be assessed. Students obtaining weather data for different seasons, students applying mathematics and computational thinking in other areas to learn about spreadsheets and graphing, students discussing and using arguments and evidence, similarities and differences in weather in different seasons. So as illustrated in these new details in the middle box, classroom instruction aligned to NGSS cannot be limited to the practice within the standard. What does this mean for alignment? First, it means that if we would have aligned our activities only to the practice, DCI, and cross-cutting concept in the student performance expectations, then we would have created an alignment for assessment rather than an alignment for instruction. And actually, our team did both. Our connections document, which is the one that you may download now, provides matches between NGSS and GLOBE activities that can contribute to classroom instruction, preparing students to meet the SPEs. The team also created a list of potential GLOBE activities and protocols that could be developed into assessments for NGSS. By November, we had assembled our team and conducted the 4 pre-webinars. That prepared the team to come to Iowa ready to work on the project, and work they did. This is the schedule that we kept to, and actually it worked a little bit later than during our 2 weeks. Participants arrived in the afternoon of November 10th, and after a quick icebreaker, the group was broken into their 6 teams. There was a K-2 team, a 3-5 team, a middle school and a high school team for physical and life sciences, and a middle school and an earth science or high school team for earth and space sciences and engineering. That evening, the group was presented with a practice student performance expectation, and each team was asked to find an activity or protocol that matched. Evaluate the match for classroom instruction and for assessment. Participants used a modified version of the Achieve OER Rubric 1 to determine the degree of alignment. This is because we were doing this in November last year, and the Equip tool had not been released yet from Achieve. So we used the document that was available at this time. Basically, each match was given a score between 0 and 3, and 0 meant no match. 3 meant that the activity could play a central role in a unit designed to prepare students to demonstrate their mastery of that performance expectation. Resources given a 3 had to connect to the DCI, the cross-cutting concept, and engage students in a practice of NGSS, although not necessarily the practice in the SPE. And after that practice match, the group shared their work so that we knew that everyone was on the same page and that we were all evaluating the resources in the same way. And then over the next 2 days, the team went through a series of work sessions followed by large group share sessions. The group share sessions helped us to ensure that all teams were applying the same scrutiny to their matches. The first full day ended with a session in a computer lab that gave the team some better access to some of GLOBE's web resources. And instead of the final share session on Tuesday, each team swapped all of their matches with another team to review. Most teams completed their work a little bit early, or some of the teams completed their work a little bit early, and they created a bonus resource for us. They selected a student performance expectation, or a couple of them, from their list, ones that were exceptionally well covered by GLOBE materials. And they developed a draft model of a GLOBE unit for that student performance expectations. These draft unit plans will be shared in the community through the community forums on the GLOBE website. And our hope then is that additional teachers, as they integrate NGSS into their curriculum, will provide more and more units about how they use GLOBE and NGSS. Finally, the group spent some time brainstorming what the implementation of NGSS would mean for US GLOBE workshops. The results were more than 550 classroom instruction matches, which had to be entered into our database. Also, the discovery of the nature of the GLOBE protocols, or the group discovered that the nature of the GLOBE protocols meant that any GLOBE and NGSS document would also have to include a description of how the GLOBE model for student science research and the practices of next generation science fit together. We also created a list of standards and GLOBE resources that didn't have matches. Of course, GLOBE is primarily an earth and environmental science program, so there were some areas where there were no match. There were also situations where there was a GLOBE activity that is intended for many different grade levels, and it matched at one grade level, but maybe not at all the grade levels that it was intended for. And that is a product that we have provided to GLOBE as well. The next phase of our project was our 2 review sessions. We had an internal community review. The initial work of the workshop team was put into a database, and the data was organized for review by the GLOBE community. They were provided 2 different views of the data. First was that match and no match list of GLOBE resources. This allowed community members to look up any GLOBE resource and see if there had been matches to specific grade levels. For example, GLOBE identifies the cloud protocols as appropriate for all grade levels, K through 12, but the cloud protocols may only have had matches created for student performance expectations at certain grade levels. And this was a time when additional people who were very familiar with GLOBE would have been able to say, oh, but I think there's a connection to this additional student performance expectation. The second document provided the GLOBE community with a list of all the matches by student performance expectation, and this document was made available by grade level and subject. Community members were asked to review matches and report missing or overstated matches. While the internal review was taking place, the project director was developing the connections between the GLOBE model for student science research and the NGSS practices. This is an important aspect of the connections document because protocols are not activities, nor are they procedures. A GLOBE protocol includes a great deal of background information and ideas about questions that could be asked and how data can be analyzed. But fundamentally, a protocol is a set of step-by-step instructions for how to accurately collect one type of data. The MSSR and the protocols together provide teachers with the tools, the protocols, and the plan, the MSSR, to engage students in developing their own investigations. One of the biggest strengths of GLOBE is that through the MSSR, professional development provided during workshops allows teachers to discover that they and their students can select among protocols that best fit their curriculum, their local community, and their student interests to develop their own investigations. The MSSR is why I have stated in past that NGSS is our national standards finally reaching the level of GLOBE. So we took the practice progression statements from the NGSS Appendix F and we mapped them for each grade onto the GLOBE MSSR, and this was the original results. It doesn't look very pretty, but this draft diagram does show links between GLOBE's model and NGSS practices and could be used by, this is the K2 version. The K2 version could be used by a first grade, second grade teacher to see which practices she would likely engage her students in if she were to engage them in, say, only a part of the MSSR. After these diagrams were completed and the results of the internal review were compiled, new drafts were released in 2 rounds of public reviews. The first part of the public review allowed us to get feedback about the redesign of the MSSR diagrams and also to show macro-level links between GLOBE and NGSS. The second round provided a first look at individual matches between GLOBE resources and the performance expectations. Public review data was collected via SurveyMonkey and used to develop the final product. You may download that final product, which is called Connections Between the GLOBE Program and NGSS, from the GLOBE website. And here we are at our final post-workshop webinar. So let's take a look at some of the final products. Here's a screenshot of the final K2 all practices mapped to the model for student science research. There are separate pages for each practice matched to each grade level. So a teacher could choose to just look at asking questions in K2 or analyzing data in K2. Ideally, Globe will be able to take these slides and create an interactive tool that will allow teachers to turn on and off grade levels and practices. So maybe be able to take a look at asking questions at K2 and 3-5 and middle school and high school all at the same time. In the PDF document, there are 9 slides for each grade level. The first 8 are each practice individually, and the last is, like you see here, all the practices mapped. The table view allows a quick look at which practice progression bullet points were connected at each grade level. This also gives, if you're not familiar with NGSS Appendix F, this gives you a quick look at what those bullet points look like. So in that appendix, there is the background information for each of the practices of science and engineering. So there's a page or 2 description of what asking questions and defining problems means in next generation science standards. And then there's a table that provides a progression description of what that looks like in K2, what it looks like in 3-5, what it looks like in middle school and high school. And each of those lists are a set of bullet points of specific things that students would be doing at practice. And so we took what mapped in this slide onto the Globe model, and we also provided it in a table view with just X's showing which ones are included here. All of the practices mapped to this model very well at all grade levels, except for modeling. In the activity of taking protocols and turning them into your own student investigations, modeling isn't an inherent trait in that process. That doesn't mean that Globe data isn't perfect data for using in developing models. It means it's really just not a part of this model. Some individual Globe protocols and individual Globe activities do directly address modeling, but those matches would be identified at the performance expectation level, not in this view. So here are some the macro level table that shows Globe investigation areas. Those are the columns across the top. And then matches for the disciplinary core ideas. Those are the columns. This table is created again for every grade level. So along the columns you'd have the science concepts, and then along the rows you'd have the science concepts. Along the columns you have the Globe areas. And then the information where they match tells you whether there are protocols or activities matched. So a P in one of the connections means that for that student performance expectation, there's at least, for that science area, there's at least one Globe protocol in that investigation area which has been connected to at least one of the performance expectations. This match can easily allow a school to see where the best fits for Globe in their curriculum might be. And then this is a screenshot of the student performance expectation level matches. These are presented by DCI, Disciplinary Core Idea, and by topic, because NGSS is likely to be adopted in some states by DCI and other states by topic. We wanted to make sure that we provided a resource that would be able to be used regardless of how the state adopted the program. The DCI tables are organized by grade level and then DCI, and the topic tables are ordered by topic and then grade level. All matches provide the name of the GLOBE resource, the investigation area, the resource type, and the source. Ideally, our document would have included hot links directly to the resource. However, many of the URLs that we entered into our database at the beginning of the project ended up becoming dead even before we had our 2.5-day workshop. So our database has a field space for the URLs, and that could be added in a future time. But right now, rather than have dead links, we decided just to stick to telling everyone which GLOBE resource you could go to in order to find that activity or protocol or book. So that is a quick overview of our project and the results. Before we open up for questions, I would like to share a few of our lessons learned. And I would invite Kristen to jump in here anytime she would like to as well. One of the things we learned is that both NGSS and GLOBE are very complex. At the start of our project, one of the things that we created that we didn't know we would be creating is one table in our database of all of the GLOBE resources. GLOBE had a list of all of the activities and protocols that are in the teacher's guide, and a separate list of all of the elementary GLOBE things, and separate lists of other things, and some of the web resources weren't on any of the lists. And so we had to first just create a list of all of the GLOBE, all the things in GLOBE that we could possibly match. Some of our workshop participants came up with a couple of things that we missed even that were resources on the website that we hadn't found. All told, we found 214 different GLOBE projects. We also moved forward with this project as quickly as possible to capitalize on enthusiasm in the GLOBE community for next generation science standards, but that meant that we had really not a whole lot of other organizations to look to that were already doing the match. And that created some negatives and some positives. One negative is that we were finished before Achieve came out with their alignment rubric, and that might have made our lives a little bit easier. A benefit, though, is that our team really developed a deeper understanding of NGSS, and as we developed our own alignment plan, as opposed to following anyone else's template. That also meant that we could honor that complex nature of both programs by developing that MSSR diagram in addition to the detailed matches. Another team member wanted me to share that this reinforced our understanding that you have to match these resources three-dimensionally, and that it helped him rekindle a deeper understanding of the GLOBE program itself. And I think maybe a lot of the members of our planning team would say that they learned even more about GLOBE going through this process. Kristen, did you have any other lessons learned?
I'd actually like to open it up to hear from some of the people on the call if they have lessons. I see some of the people that did participate in the workshop.
Okay, great. Can I close this so that I can see? Okay, I'm just going to close the PowerPoint so I can see the comments.
And I'm actually going to unmute everybody so then you could just jump in. Julie, I know, just unmuted Julie, so maybe you'd like to share what your lessons learned. No, I can hear you through the wall.
Okay, now.
Yes.
My volume really low. I think that I echo Marcy in that this was a really big undertaking, and I learned a lot about NGSS and even more about GLOBE. Even my work with GLOBE, I learned about some activities I've never seen before. So overall, I felt like we got a really thorough understanding of how GLOBE and NGSS connected.
Thank you.
I muted everyone again because there was some back sound on that one.
So
sorry about that, but please raise your hand if you'd like to share or type into the screen also if you would like to add anything.
And at this time, we could also open up to if anyone has any questions about the process that we went through.
Yeah. This is Kristen again. I think one of the biggest things I learned was just the complexity of how teachers would take different parts of GLOBE, like the learning activities and protocols, and how it's really a combination to address performance expectations. And also seeing the complexity of how NGSS kind of the framework is, as well as how teachers can address that. But it also is a huge opportunity for us. I think it was really exciting to hear different people of how they're already addressing NGSS with GLOBE and using all of these different pieces to fit together. That was one of the biggest kind of aha things for me.
That's fantastic. I'm going to share another slide.
Yeah.
That I didn't put into this PowerPoint. I don't want that one. So are you guys seeing one that says SP matches in 5th grade now? Did I lose everybody?
If we see the slide? Yeah.
Yeah, do you see that slide that says 5th grade?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is an example of one of the student performance expectations in which there were lots of matches. There were actually, this is one of 3 pages of matches. And one of the things that I really liked is on those places where, there were a lot of places where there are 1 or 2 activities or 1 activity, or you could do 5 or 6 protocols. But there are a few areas, particularly in earth and space science, of course, where there were just multiple things that created a match. And what's really exciting about that is I think that this is a potential place where we really can see the power of GLOBE and the power of next generation science standards. One of the other misconceptions is that this is not a curriculum. NGSS doesn't tell teachers what they have to do in their classroom. It tells them what they have to get to. And for this 5th grade standard, there are so many different ways that a teacher could put together all these 3 pages of protocols and activities and use these 3 protocols but none of the others, or these 2 protocols instead. And there's so many ways I can envision putting this together and having it look different in Iowa at a school that has a creek right outside their school grounds, and another, in Chicago, in the middle of downtown Chicago, it might look completely different, and yet they can still all get to the same place, and they can all use a different arrangement of GLOBE to get there. So that was one of the things that I found very, very exciting about the project. And I knew there would be a lot of connections, but I really didn't envision that there would be some of these SPE where there would just be so many connections.
So Erin had a question. Do you have full page files for each of your alignment summaries available on the GLOBE webpage? Yes, we do. Well, we have the product and we will get it up on the website within the next month. Marcy, do you want to speak to the dissemination of the product or what your vision is for GIO to implement for you?
It will be available as we put the whole thing that we envision will primarily be used by teachers, educators, administrators, trainers, and partners as a single document. It's 184 pages long, I think. And it's going to be available as a PDF for download in the Teaching and Learning section under Learning Standards, and there's a tab for Next Generation Science Standards. Hopefully as well, partnerships will start. Partnerships in states where NGSS is adopted will start integrating the use of that into their partnership training programs. So in my trainings, I make sure that teachers don't just learn how to do several protocols, but we do a summer institute, and then we work with the same teachers for the full year afterwards, and they design a unit related to the things that we do in the Summer Institute. And in the past, they had to connect that unit to, in Iowa it's called the Iowa Core, but basically it's the National Science Education Standards. And once Iowa adopts NGSS, instead they'll be aligning to the NGSS standards in that unit. So I will build that alignment, use of this alignment document right into my workshops. We do hope that GLOBE has the ability in the future to take those diagrams particularly and turn them into some kind of interactive, because that will be a little less cluttered. Then all of the information is there the way we provided it, but it would be nice to be able to look at it in several different ways. And then also we have that match, no match list, and a few of those activities no longer match because that content was in the National Science Standards and isn't in NGSS, because NGSS is deeper, not wider. A few didn't match because the content has been moved from one grade level to another, generally lower, and the activity, we only align to activities that, if we aligned it to a 3rd grade standard, then it had to be a 3rd grade activity. And so we have a list of the ones that didn't make it because of the grade level. And hopefully some other GLOBE partnership or GLOBE can get a small grant in which they might be able to go and look at that and adapt down or up some of those activities, or find a different way to connect those activities, because they are activities. Well, the protocol's all matched. And then the last thing that we created that's not in that document to download is the potential assessment matches. And I think that it would be very easy for GLOBE or a GLOBE partnership or a couple of partnerships to get funding to take that list and create some NGSS assessments that were doing GLOBE activities or doing GLOBE protocols, because there are some cases where I think there's a kindergarten protocol where students are collecting weather data and then graphing it. It would be very easy to have the assessment for whether they had mastery of that be some GLOBE protocols and activities. That was a long answer to that question. That yes, it is available on the web, or it will be available on the website.
If anyone else would like
questions?
to chime in verbally, I could unmute you if you just want to raise your hand, or feel free to type your questions in.
Thank you. And if someone is on board here or listening to this recording later, and the reason why you are watching this webinar is that you have a curriculum that you want to match to NGSS and you'd like more details about how we did that, this was an overview. You can certainly contact GLOBE, or you can contact me, and I'll put my email address in the box. I could do that, I think. So you could contact me at my email address, and I could provide some other details.
Another interesting thing about this project is that I think a lot of organizations are not going through as much of a review process, and so also contact us if you're interested to learn more about that, as well as have us help review something. I'm not sure. I think a lot of different organizations are going about it very differently. And we had a very intensive community review process, again, 2 stages. And so we would definitely be willing to help out with anything that your organization would like to do also.
Yeah, we could share even the surveys, and although depending on what you did, it may or may not be helpful. We got great feedback at each of the stages. We would have probably preferred a little bit more feedback, but all of the feedback that we got was very helpful, and it all did influence the final product quite a bit. Yes,
we got feedback on individual matches as well as the overall presentation and how things would be conducted. And I think it was helpful to get lots of different variations and forms of feedback too.
We may not have included that macro level match if more people hadn't have said, oh, this is really important to us in that feedback loop. And the view of those diagram pages changed quite a bit as well. And we did get additional matches, and a couple of matches got pulled.
Yes, Fatima, we hope you do send us an email.
Great. Well, I have a couple more slides if we don't have any more questions.
Yes, go ahead.
I have 2 PowerPoints open right now, though, so I'm getting the right one. And so thank you for joining us today. I hope this was maybe no. If you'd like to learn more about the resources on the website and NGSS, you'd go to Teaching and Learning Standard on the GLOBE website. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we could probably stop the recording.
Yes. Hello? Marcy?